Healing is not just about what you do, it's about who you do the healing with. And if you do not find anybody to do the healing with, do it yourself. Do it yourself. It's even better you do it yourself. Owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your peace. No one is entitled to your peace. You know this feeling of people being entitled to how your emotional stability. That's when you know you are in a toxic relationship. Just know it's some form of witchcraft, something. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your progress. You don't owe anyone your mental health. You owe yourself a life that feels safe, a life that feels joyful, a life that feels free. You owe yourself the freedom to live and to be. Today's episode is another personal one. And before I start the video or I begin to talk, if you are someone that knows me, maybe from way back, family member, friend or former friend or colleague or former colleague, these videos I make about mental health and mental stability, about creating boundaries and choosing yourself, is not getting back at anyone. So if probably you've heard me in the past or we've heard ourselves in the past, this is not me getting back at you. I'm just making this disclaimer because you know how people think. So today's episode is about refusing trauma bonds. It's about choosing quality people, even when it means walking away from what is familiar, even when it means taking a step away from that context and that environment that we are used to. We'll be talking about what trauma bonding is, how and why we stay in trauma bonds, the psychology behind trauma bonding, and choosing quality people. Although we'll break it down better, right? We'll break down how to choose quality people better in the next episode. Then we'll round up this episode by building how to build healthy connections and stay and remain a healthy person, right? So that you can nurture your healthy connections. Hello everyone, Kiora, and welcome back to Tupono Health. In this podcast, we connect research, we connect culture, and we connect real talk to improve well-being for everyone across the world. Like I said, today's episode will be talking about refusing trauma bonding and choosing quality people. Now, because here is the truth, people do not like to talk about these problems, these things that bother them, right? Not everyone who has been through pain with you is supposed to be with you when you are healing. Not everyone who has been through a specific up and down with you is meant to walk you into healing. Some people are supposed to be detached away from you. Now, before I continue, let's remember that when the Creator made us, He made us as individuals. Even if you were born as a twin or a triplet or part of a multiple birth, you see, what do they call it? Fingerprints are different. Everything about us is different. People are made with different paths to life. Sometimes people come into our lives for a specific period of time, for a specific purpose, in a specific place. We must be sensitive enough to recognize when the time is up. We must be sensitive enough to recognize, look, in the next 3 to 5 years of my life, I will not need this particular person in my life. Or if I allow this person to continue to be with me, he or she may cause a major chaos in my life in the next 10 years? While we go through trauma bonding and what it is and why we should avoid it, or why we should refuse it, I use the word refuse and not avoid, because sometimes we find ourselves in relationships that we do not choose, especially family dynamics, family relationships. You're born into a particular family, you didn't choose it, right? Situations like maybe where we grew up, our hometowns, our villages, our communities where we live. Sometimes we do not choose those things. The religion that we belong to, our belief system, sometimes we do not choose it. We're born into it and we grew up. For instance, I was born into Christianity and I grew up a Christian, right? You may be born into Islam and you grow up a Muslim. So some of these things you do not choose. Let me go straight to what we're supposed to talk about. Let's talk about how to spot trauma bonds, what trauma bonds are, and if there's anything I'm mentioning today in this episode, please put it in the comment section, or just try and reach me and just educate me, or just make me know or understand many of the things that I may not have read about, or I may not know, or I may not be talking about. Let's see how to break them down, how to choose relationships that nourish and not drain, right? Relationships that nourish us and not drain us. Because most times the reason why we feel drained is because of the kind of relationships that we have with people, either family, either romantic relationships, either religious relationships. So what is trauma bonding? It appears like it happens when we form intense emotional connections with people through shared pain, shared dysfunction, shared chaos, right? It's not always romantic. It's not always about the romantic side of it. It can be friendships, it can be family, even professional relationships. It could be that you grew up in the same family, um, and you share the same problems, you share the same pain of family dysfunction. That situation bonds you and that person, and you feel okay, you are in the same space, you're in the same mental space with that person. Long ago, I worked in a company where, or not too long, anyways, about last year, I met someone in academics who was already experiencing burnout at the beginning of his research. Of course, yeah, I was going through my own phase of disappointment and academic dynamics that one may not understand at the beginning of one's program. We bonded over this shared frustration. But over time, I noticed that our conversation was, looped. It never moved forward. It was just going around and round and round. Now it was going around, not moving forward, not providing any solution, right? These conversations were stuck in bitterness. They were stuck in blame. They were stuck in venting to ourselves, bitterness against what who had written what, and who had said what, or who had and organized what, blaming government, school, department, group, a lot of things. So I realized we're not healing. Although it's good to vent, as a PhD student, sometimes you're advised to look for a fellow PhD student and vent to the person, right? But then when it becomes a habit, then it becomes unhealthy. So we're not healing, we're only looping. Trauma bonds feel deep. It feels like deep connection, right? But they're often built on survival, not growth. So that those venting, that that feeling of bitterness you feel, not towards the person but alongside the person's own bitterness, creates the sense of you being in the same space, with the person. And that is not about, oh, he gets me and I get her, or she gets me, I get. No, it's because you people are trauma bonded as a result of an issue that is affecting you both. It's not because you really like each other, it's not because you're friends. It's not because you wish well for one another. You may wish well for them, they don't wish well for you. The reason why they are talking to you or being with you at that moment is because you're also going through the same problem. If they see another person, if you are able to sort your problem and leave them, in that space of bitterness where they are, and you kind of outgrow that phase, you will see that they will look for another person who does not like you and begin to, vent their frustrations about you to the person. That's how the human mind works. So, why do we continue to stay in trauma bonds, family, romantic relationships, toxic, abusive marriages, places of work that that are so toxic? You wake up every morning not wanting to go, not because you do not love your job, but because you practically do not want to be with those people in your workplace. Let's be honest. Familiarity is comforting. It's like it's nice to have people around. It's nice to belong to a family, to a system, to a community where loyalty is sacred, especially in cultures like African, Asian, the Pacific cultures where loyalty is sacred. In Nigerian culture, there's a saying that blood is thicker than water. But sometimes that blood, that blood can drown you. Sometimes the water from friendships from people who are not family members will save you more than the blood that you share with someone from the same womb. In New Zealand's Maori language, there's a context, a concept that translates to kingship, a person's ancestry, a person's lineage. This is what binds people together, whether people, siblings of the same parents or different parents, or somehow that thing, that binds, that ancestry, that lineage that connects them, that connection is very sacred to them. But then what happens when that bonds become toxic? Why do we stay when these bonds, this kingship, this siblinghood, this familial, this supposed to be comforting familiar relationship, when what happens when they become toxic? Why do we stay? We stay because we fear being alone, the fear of loneliness, the fear of waking up and not seeing your sibling, the fear of waking up and not seeing that parent you grew up with, or that caregiver that you grew up with. We feel guilty for leaving because whether we like it or not, the day we voice our thoughts of leaving, we become the black sheep of the family. So even before we leave, we feel guilty for leaving. So to avoid such guilt, we stay in the relationship. We think that shared things equal shared destiny. So, for instance, if I had a dysfunctional childhood with someone, could be sibling, could be step, could be cousin, right? We begin to think that, okay, that shared pain will become shared destiny. We should do things together. We should be together. We should be for each other. We must be bonded just because we suffered, something similar growing up. Same thing with colleagues at work. Say you had a boss you did not really agree with. Together you were always bitter against this person. You were always not in a good place with this boss. So both of you begin to think that, okay, because you share the pain, your destiny now begins to align, or something like that. And that's why when you see maybe a colleague is leaving a place of work, maybe changing jobs or changing careers and leaving that company, there is a little bit of resentment from other people, not out of envy, but out of how are you leaving us? How are you able to leave us in this painful situation? How are you being so wicked? Why won't you stay with us, to go through this pain together? Why won't you suffer this pain with us? The same thing in a family system, in a dysfunctional family system. In fact, there are families that from dusk to dawn is trouble, is pain, one type of pain or the other. The day you decide to say, this, I am tired of it, I'm leaving, you become a bad person. You become a bad person not because you actually did anything to them. You become a bad person because it's like, how are you leaving us to in this dysfunction? Not because they want to work on it, not because they are going for any form of therapy or um doing any kind of brainstorming to avoid or refuse or repair that dysfunction. No, they are angry because you're leaving, and then they are going to continue that circle for themselves. You are detaching, and then it's creating a void in what they already know to be true. So let's discuss the psychology behind trauma bonding. Like I used to say, this podcast is about research culture, general well-being. So if I bring a concept and it feels interesting and you want us to discuss further, please put it in the comment section or reach me personally on Instagram. If it's something you want to study, just go online and read about it. It will help. Watch other videos if you can. Listen to other podcasts on this topic if you can. The purpose for this podcast as a whole, not just this mini series on mental health, is not because I want to put myself out there. It's because I want to make impact. It's because I want to shed light on things that people like me may not understand. It's so great when where the world, God has created us as different people, different colors, different hair types, you know different fashion sense. So it's nice when someone like you is discussing a topic or a context that you can relate with. My podcast, my channel is about impact. It's about how to upgrade people's well-being, people's mental health, people's research culture. Maybe I'll talk about immigration someday. I do not know. I was pulled to do something 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago on how to gain doctoral scholarship in New Zealand. Maybe I could do something like that again. Good. But this is what I do on this podcast and is for the impact of it. So, research shows that trauma bond often mimics intermittent reinforcement. And this has happened to me severally, right? It's a psychological pattern that, like, it where unpredictable rewards create strong attachment. It's the same mechanism in gambling addiction. In my life, there was a time, or there are periods that I've met people, or even close family members. This person will offend me and tell me toxic things and tell me abusive things. This person will abuse me psychologically, emotionally, physically, not just when we are together, but even when we're in the midst of other people. Guess what? Guess what they do later? They go back. Now, when we are left alone, they buy me gifts. Just go, even if they don't have the money at that moment. Somehow they look for the money and buy me gift so that I can, stay attached to them. It was a lot of mental trauma growing up. Till today, when I want to discuss such trauma with such family members, it becomes a tug of war. They don't want to hear, they don't want to listen. But in my healing, I believe staying away or Giving space is not enough. Sometimes you have to say something. I was on Twitter, sorry, on X some time ago, and I saw this lady that said whenever she remembered something from her childhood, something maybe her parents did to her, she goes to her parents or she calls them and say, "Daddy, this thing that you did to me when I was 4 years old, why did you do that?" And then maybe the person will say, the dad or the mom will say, "Okay, maybe I didn't remember." And then she'll say sorry. It looked funny, it looked hilarious doing that, but that is her own way of healing. I encourage conversation if people are willing to listen. Again, just like gambling addiction. So they give you the gift, the following day they repeat same. They maybe make food for you, another day they repeat the same thing. So you are trauma bonded in that situation, in that family system, in that romantic relationships. When you hear about physical abuse, not just emotional abuse, now physical abuse, where the spouse, one spouse will, physically hit the other spouse, the victim stays in that relationship because of trauma bonding. The victim is trauma bonded to the predator. To the predator. I'll call them predators now, because there are instances where the person beating the predator, I don't want to say the man beating the woman now, because even women beat men. So even for instance, say the man beats the woman in the morning, he goes out. As he's coming back in the evening, he buys, something big. Could be designer clothes, designer bags, cars, you know. So the woman is wearing those designer clothes with blue eyes and black, beating all over, inflammation, pain all over her body. Her soul is beaten down. Her soul is crushed. Her spirit is crushed. But she's looking all glam because, yeah, they've given her all those gifts, so she's staying there. And again, she's thinking, if I go, what how do I take care of myself? How do I maintain this lifestyle? It's both ways. Men, women. Men can be attached, trauma bonded to women. Women can be trauma bonded to men. Siblings can be trauma bonded to themselves. Parents